what are the most critical things that a leader should be focused on to get their business from 0 to 5 million? And then two-part question, how does that change or what evolves around the focus when they're going from 5 to 10? And those numbers, by the way, are somewhat arbitrary. I think the question is more like getting 0 to that sort of mid-size and then getting from the mid-size to the large size, if you will. Like how do your priorities change, your focuses change? What problems are you solving in those early days that you're then not solving in the later days, but then what problems become, of more importance to you? Just kind of talk us through those stages because you've been through them.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a tough one to answer in a short period, but I'll do my best. I would say 0 to 5. For me, I felt like it was really important to understand my overhead, my budget, how to achieve the profit that I planned in a systemic way. In other words, how do I take my overhead and my cost of goods sold, which is labor, material, equipment, and subcontractors, and how do I take that and make sure that I'm going to make profit repeatable? Because I think once you figure out how to match up your overhead and your pricing and your production rates in the field, then you've got a recipe that makes money. And so 0 to 5, I think for me was getting that right and making sure that I understood how to make profit process driven, something that we could do over and over and over again. And then as we kind of transitioned from 5 to 10, it became, how do I make that repeatable using systems and processes and training programs that ensure that I can do this at scale. I can teach others to come in and estimate and manage work and perform the work in a way where we're going to get consistent results, regardless of which crew is doing the work. And that is a sort of art in itself. And I think that gets you from 5 to 10. And then I think after 10 million, all kinds of things change again, and it becomes, a little bit more complex from the perspective of, feeding that beast, making sure you've got enough work, making sure that you've got enough cash flow, making sure that your risk is minimized legally, and all sorts of things like that. But definitely, I think there's two distinct phases between 0 and 10 million.
That's a great answer. I think you nailed that. I know it could have been a lot more long-winded and there's nuance there, but in broad strokes, I'm very satisfied with what you just said. You've mentioned a couple times this idea of like revenue per hour or revenue per employee. And really what that is a indicator of how efficient you are on site, off site as well, but it's really showcasing how quickly and well you produce revenue with the resources that you have. And you mentioned offline, I think you said like, on the rankings of like landscaping businesses in North America, you guys were, I think in the mid 60s, correct me if I'm wrong, mid 60s in terms of size, but you were like number 1 in terms of revenue per employee hour. When and how and why did you clue into this thing being so important? And then on the heels of that, how did you double down and continue to invest in that specific sort of measure of efficiency?
Yeah, for me, I think as I was growing the business, I was really aware of costs and estimating, and that being from the background that I had, as I said, working in nuclear, working in mechanical industry where every project is a large project. I had to really understand overhead. I had to understand markups and estimating and profitability, and so I think I honed that skill in maybe a little bit more technical industry than landscaping, or at least typical landscaping. And so I was really aware of that. But I think I felt that for me to really build something great, I needed to be able to pay my staff really well. I needed to operate with consistent profits, and I needed to really understand what my job costs were on an ongoing basis. So as I got going, I really focused on that in the first few years, and that allowed me to really have the business insights that would drive the scale that we did. And so revenue per hour became a key performance indicator, or a KPI. I'll probably use the term KPI moving forward, but KPI is just a way of measuring how we're going along against a plan. And so revenue per hour for me became a really important KPI in my business to assess whether or not every day, every week, every month was going well for a crew. So we had many different trades in my company. We had equipment operators and masons and carpenters, electricians, plumbers, landscape technicians, and more. And so every type of trade has slightly different revenue per hour. But for us, it was really important that everybody had a budget. Every crew, that is, had a budget, and they understood how much revenue they should produce each day, each week, each month, and for the season or year. And so I really tied everything back to revenue per hour because it's easy to measure. Billing tells us what we're generating against the hours that we're paying out on payroll. And so that became a real guidepost for me along the way.
Listen, if you like that clip, you can watch the full episode by clicking here. If you're not yet subscribed, you probably should be, and you can do that by clicking right here.